Admiral Chang Ho Nam stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching the last of the wreck's escape ships disappear into faster-than-light travel. The battle was over, but its effects would be felt across the galaxy for years to come. "Sir," Commander Jian Song approached from behind, carrying a data tablet. "The final casualty reports are in. We lost 22 ships total, with 637 personnel killed or wounded." Admiral Nam nodded solemnly. Each number represented a life, a family that would grieve, a future that would never be. "Make sure their names are recorded in the memorial archive. Their sacrifice protected every human world in the galaxy." "Yes, sir." "Admiral, should I ask why we let 4 wreck ships escape? We could have captured their entire fleet." Admiral Nam smiled slightly. "Commander, sometimes the ships you don't destroy are more valuable than the ones you do. Those 4 ships are carrying a message back to wreck space that's worth more than any intelligence we could have gathered." On the bridge of the UES Dauntless, Captain Hyunwoo Kim was coordinating the recovery operations. His ship had served its purpose perfectly, drawing the wreck's fleet into the trap and providing the intelligence that made victory possible. "Captain," Dr. Min-ho Yoon reported from his science station, "we've completed the analysis of all wreck's technology recovered from the battle. The data has been transmitted to every human research facility in the galaxy." "How long before we can integrate their advances into our own ships?" Captain Kim asked. "Most of their systems are actually inferior to what we already have," Dr. Yoon replied. "But there are a few interesting innovations. I estimate we can improve our shield efficiency by about 15%, and their communication systems might allow us to coordinate larger fleets more effectively." This was exactly what Captain Kim had expected. Humans had always been excellent at taking the best ideas from other species and making them better. It was one of the advantages of having a culture that valued learning over pride. "Yoonji, have you finished the broadcast to all human worlds?" Communications Officer Yoonji Choi looked up from her station. "Yes, sir. Every colony and outpost has been informed that the Vrex threat has been neutralized. We're also transmitting complete tactical data, so other defense forces can prepare for similar attacks." Captain Kim walked to the center of the bridge, looking out at the debris field that was all that remained of the once mighty Vrex fleet. Somewhere in that wreckage were the dreams of an empire that had thought humans would be easy prey. "Sir," Ensign Haewon Shin called out from the sensor station, "I'm detecting 3 more alien fleets on long-range sensors. They're maintaining distance but definitely observing us. Species identification? Unknown, sir. But their energy signatures are consistent with advanced civilizations. They've probably been watching the battle." Captain Kim smiled. This was the real purpose of the engagement, not just to defeat the Rex, but to send a message to every other species that might be considering aggressive action against human colonies. "Let them watch," he said. "Make sure our ships are clearly visible and that our weapon signatures are easy to analyze. I want them to see exactly what happens when someone attacks human civilians." On one of the fleeing Vrex ships, Sub-Admiral Kexvar tried to make sense of what he had witnessed. His ship, the Relentless, had been on the edge of the fleet when the human attack began, allowing him to escape when Admiral Thexava's flagship was captured. "Navigator, how long until we reach the nearest Vrex outpost?" he asked. 18 hours at maximum speed, sir." Kexavar looked at the tactical recordings his ship had made during the battle. The numbers were almost impossible to believe. 15 Vrex dreadnoughts, the pride of the Empire's fleet, had been defeated by a swarm of smaller human vessels in less than 4 hours. "Communications. Prepare a priority transmission to High Command," he ordered. "Classification level Empire Threat Alpha. Sir, that classification level is reserved for threats to the very existence of the Empire," his communications officer pointed out. "I know," Kexvar replied grimly. "Send the message." Across the galaxy, other species were indeed watching the aftermath of the battle. The hegemony of Klax had been considering expansion into human space for several years. The Confederation of Zephyr had marked several human colonies as potential targets for resource extraction. The Dominion of Vorthal had been planning to test human defenses with small raids. All of these plans were quietly shelved as intelligence officers analyzed the tactical data from the Vrex engagement. Admiral Chang Ho Nam received a communication from Earth High Command 6 hours after the battle ended. The face of Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on his secure channel, her expression serious but pleased. "Chang Ho, outstanding work. The entire Defense Council is impressed with how smoothly the operation went. Thank you, Admiral. The crew performed exactly as trained. But I have to ask, are we sure this was the right approach? We've essentially declared war on an entire empire. Admiral Chen leaned back in her chair. Chang-Ho, the Vrex declared war on us the moment they attacked New Seoul. We just decided to fight it on our terms instead of theirs. Yes, ma'am. What are our orders regarding the captured personnel? Standard prisoner of war protocols. Medical care. Decent treatment, opportunity to communicate with their families. We want them to understand that humans don't fight out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Admiral Nam understood. The way prisoners were treated often mattered more than the outcome of battles when it came to long-term peace. And the captured ships? Study them, learn from them, then return them to Vrex space with their crews. Make sure they understand that this was a defensive action, not an invasion. After the communication ended, Admiral Nam made his way to the detention areas where Vrex prisoners were being held. The alien soldiers looked exactly as he had expected, confused, defeated, and somewhat frightened. But they were also being treated with dignity. Human medical personnel were caring for their wounded. Translators were helping them communicate with their families. Food that met their dietary requirements was being prepared in the ship's kitchens. Admiral Thexva was in a larger cell, appropriate for his rank. When Admiral Nam entered, the alien commander stood up, his massive frame towering over the human officer. I am Admiral Nam of the United Earth Defense Force, he said formally. I wanted to speak with you personally. You have won a great victory, Thexva replied. My empire will remember this defeat. I hope they will, Admiral Nam agreed. But more than that, I hope they will understand why it happened. The alien admiral looked confused. You defeated us because your technology and tactics were superior. No, Admiral. We defeated you because you threatened our families. Admiral Nam moved to the transparent wall of the cell, looking directly at the Vrex commander. Your empire made a fundamental error. You assumed that because humans are scattered across many worlds, we are weak and divided. Are you not? We are diverse, yes. We have different cultures, different governments, different ways of life. But when someone threatens any human world, they threaten all human worlds. Admiral Nam paused, making sure the alien understood. Admiral, your fleet didn't attack just New Seoul. From our perspective, you attacked humanity itself. Admiral Thexva considered this. Your response was disproportionate, was it? You planned to conquer 47 worlds containing 600 million people. We responded by defeating one fleet. I would say our response was quite restrained. The alien commander had no answer to that. In his culture, military defeats were followed by revenge, escalation, and eventual total war. The idea that the humans might stop after achieving their defensive objectives was foreign to him. What happens now? He asked. Now you go home, Admiral Nam replied. You tell your leaders what you learned here. You explain that humans are not easy prey, and that attacks on our colonies will be met with overwhelming force. And if my empire decides to send a larger fleet? Admiral Nam's expression grew cold. Admiral, what you saw today was a single human defense force responding to a relatively small threat. If your empire escalates this conflict, you will discover that we have been preparing for that possibility as well. 3 days later, the surviving Vrex ships reached their nearest outpost. Sub-Admiral Kexvar immediately transmitted his report to High Command, along with complete tactical recordings of the battle. The response was swift and decisive. Within hours, every Vrex fleet in human space received orders to withdraw immediately. The Vrex High Council declared human space to be off-limits to all Imperial vessels. But the message spread beyond just the Vrex Empire. Intelligence networks throughout the galaxy carried the story of how a supposedly primitive species had decisively defeated one of the most powerful military forces in known space. The hegemony of Klax quietly redirected their expansion efforts away from human space. The Confederation of Zephyr decided that trade agreements would be more profitable than conquest. The Dominion of Vorthal concluded that humans would make better allies than enemies. On Earth, in the chambers of the United Earth Defense Council, the success of Operation Lighthouse was discussed with satisfaction, but not celebration. Fleet Admiral Chen addressed the council members via holographic link. Admiral Thexva sat in the detention cell aboard the human cruiser, his massive frame barely fitting on the small chair designed for human prisoners. Through the transparent wall, he could see human officers walking past. going about their duties with the same calm efficiency they had shown during the battle. Major Woojin Park entered the cell, carrying a tablet and a cup of what smelled like human coffee. He sat across from the alien admiral, looking tired but satisfied. "Admiral, I wanted to talk to you about something," Major Park said. "Our intelligence officers have been analyzing the data from your ship's computers. Do you want to know what they found?" Thexva looked up, his large black eyes reflecting the harsh cell lighting. "I assume you found our invasion plans." "We did. But that's not what I wanted to discuss." Major Park activated his tablet, showing a star map covered with red markers. "These are all the human colonies your empire had marked for conquest. 47 worlds with a total population of nearly 600 million people." The alien admiral nodded slowly. "Those were our targets, yes. Your people spread across the galaxy like insects, building small, weak settlements that could be easily conquered." Major Park smiled, but there was no humor in it. "That's what I wanted to talk about, Admiral. Those weak settlements you were planning to attack. Would you like to know what they really are?" Before the Admiral could answer, Major Park changed the display. Now the star map showed the same worlds, but with different markers, blue icons that indicated military installations, defense platforms, and hidden weapon caches. "Every single colony your people identified as a target has been preparing for your invasion since the day we knew you existed," Major Park explained. "The farmers and merchants and scientists you plan to conquer, they're all reserve soldiers. The mining equipment they use to extract resources, it can be converted to weapons manufacturing in a matter of days." Admiral Thexva stared at the display in shock. "That's impossible." "Our intelligence was very thorough." "Your intelligence was excellent," Major Park agreed. "You saw exactly what we wanted you to see. You cataloged our defensive positions, counted our ships, analyzed our weapons, but you missed the most important thing about human colonies." The Major touched another control, and the display zoomed in on one of the marked worlds. New Sol, the first colony the Rex had attacked 3 months ago. You attacked New Sol because your scouts reported it as lightly defended. One small orbital station, minimal military presence, mostly civilian population. What did you find when you actually got there? Thexava's voice was barely a whisper. They fought like demons. Every civilian was armed. Every building was a fortress. We lost 3 ships taking one small city. And that was just one colony that had only a few weeks' warning, Major Park said. "Admiral, every human world you marked for conquest has had years to prepare. They've been building weapons, training soldiers, and planning defenses specifically designed to counter Rex tactics." The alien commander felt a chill run through his body. "How many soldiers do you have?" "That's the wrong question, Admiral. The right question is, how many humans are there?" Major Park changed the display again, showing population figures for each world. "Every human citizen over the age of 16 receives basic military training. Every adult knows how to use a weapon, how to maintain equipment, and how to follow orders in combat." Admiral Thexva did the mathematics in his head and felt sick. 600 million people. 600 million soldiers. Not soldiers, Admiral. Citizens who become soldiers when someone threatens their families. Major Park leaned forward. "You weren't planning to conquer a bunch of defenseless colonies. You were planning to invade 600 million people who had spent years preparing to kill you." On the bridge of the battleship Busan's Fury, Captain Seojun Kwan reviewed the intelligence data that had been gathered from the captured Vrek ships. His engineering teams had been working around the clock to analyze alien technology and find ways to improve human systems. "Captain," his chief engineer reported, "we've successfully reverse-engineered their shield generators. The basic principles are actually quite simple. We should be able to integrate them into our own ships within a month." Captain Kwan nodded. This was exactly what he had expected. Human engineering philosophy was based on the idea that any technology could be understood, improved, and mass-produced. It was an approach that had served them well throughout their expansion across the galaxy. "What about their weapons?" he asked. "Even easier, sir. Their energy weapons are actually less efficient than our mass drivers for ship-to-ship combat. But they might be useful for planetary defense applications." This was the pattern that had emerged throughout the battle. The Vrex had superior individual technologies, but they were technologies designed to maintain superiority over long periods. Human technology was designed to be improved, adapted, and replaced as circumstances change. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message from Admiral Nam. He wants to speak with you privately." Captain Quan made his way to his ready room, where Admiral Chung Honam's face appeared on the secure communication screen. The Admiral looked pleased but thoughtful. "Seo Jun, congratulations on the victory. How are your casualties?" "Light, sir. We lost 18 ships, mostly corvettes and fighters. About 400 personnel killed or wounded." Admiral Nam nodded gravely. Even in victory, the loss of human lives was never treated lightly. The price of freedom is always paid in blood. Make sure their families know they died protecting every human world in the galaxy. "Yes, sir." "Admiral, what's our next move? The Vrex Empire still has dozens of fleets out there." "That's what I wanted to discuss with you," Admiral Nam replied. "We're going to let some of the Vrex ships escape." Captain Quan looked surprised. "Sir, we have them trapped." "We could destroy their entire fleet." "Destroying them isn't the goal, Captain. Teaching them is the goal." Admiral Nam pulled up a tactical display showing the current battle. "We're going to disable most of their ships and capture their crews. But we're going to let 3 or 4 vessels return to Vrex space with a very specific message." The captain began to understand. "We want them to tell their leaders what happened here." "Exactly. Fear is a weapon too, Seojun. When word of this battle reaches other aggressive species, they'll think twice before attacking human colonies." Back in the detention cell, Major Park continued his conversation with Admiral Thexva. The alien commander was beginning to understand the full scope of the trap his empire had walked into. "You have to understand, Admiral, that everything your people learned about humans was wrong," the Major explained. "You saw our scattered colonies and assumed we were weak and disorganized. In reality, those scattered colonies are our greatest strength." "How can scattered forces be stronger than concentrated ones?" Thexva asked. "Because scattered forces are much harder to destroy completely. If you had conquered one human world, 46 others would still be fighting. If you had conquered 10 worlds, 37 others would still be preparing your destruction." Major Park stood up and began pacing the small cell. "Admiral, your empire made the same mistake that every aggressive species makes. You assumed that military strength comes from having the biggest ships and the most powerful weapons. Doesn't it?" the Admiral asked. "No. Military strength comes from having a population that's willing to fight and die to protect each other. Technology helps, but will to fight is what wins wars." Major Park stopped pacing and looked directly at the alien commander. "Every human in the galaxy knows that if one colony falls, theirs might be next. That knowledge makes them very dangerous." Admiral Thexva thought about the human colonies his scouts had observed. He had seen farmers working in fields, merchants trading goods, families raising children. They had looked so peaceful, so vulnerable. "They were all acting," he said quietly. "No, Admiral, they weren't acting. They really are farmers and merchants and families, but they're also citizens of humanity, and that means they're prepared to become soldiers when necessary." Major Park sat back down. "That's what your empire never understood about humans. We don't separate military and civilian populations the way other species do. Every human is both." The alien commander closed his eyes, finally grasping the magnitude of his empire's miscalculation. "We thought you were prey. You were wrong. We're not prey, Admiral. We're not predators either. We're protectors." Major Park's voice grew harder. "And when someone threatens what we're protecting, we become very, very dangerous." Through the ship's communication system, Admiral Thexva could hear human officers coordinating the cleanup of the battle. Ships were being repaired, wounded were being treated, and captured Rex personnel were being processed. It all happened with the same calm efficiency that had characterized the entire engagement. "Major," the Admiral said finally, "what happens to me now? That depends on you, Admiral. You can cooperate with our intelligence officers, help us understand Vrex military capabilities, and maybe prevent more of your people from dying in pointless attacks on human worlds." Admiral Thexva considered this. His empire was vast and powerful, but this battle had shown him that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. More Vrex fleets would come and they would meet. Colonel Sang-Wook Lim stood in the shuttle bay of the heavy cruiser Incheon Hammer, addressing the 200 Marines who would soon board the Vrex ships. These men and women came from every human world in the galaxy, volunteers who had trained for years for this moment. "Listen up," Colonel Lim said, his voice carrying clearly through the bay. "In 15 minutes, we're going to enter alien ships designed by minds that think differently than ours. Their corridors will be the wrong size, their gravity will feel strange, and their air will smell foreign." The Marines listened quietly, checking their equipment one final time. They wore armor that was lighter and more flexible than the heavy suits used by other species, designed for speed and mobility rather than pure protection. But remember this, the colonel continued, no matter how different they look, no matter how advanced their technology, they're still living beings who can be hurt, who can be scared, and who can be beaten. And more importantly, you're fighting for every human family in the galaxy. Don't let them down. Sergeant Yejin Bayek raised her hand. She was a small woman, barely tall enough to meet the minimum height requirements, but her record spoke for itself. 3 tours on the frontier worlds, 2 decorations for valor, and skills in hand-to-hand combat that were legendary even among the Marines. Sir, what if their ship layouts are completely different from our simulations? Colonel Lim smiled. Good question, Sergeant. The answer is that we adapt. That's what humans do better than any other species. We change our plans when the situation changes. Other races stick to their training no matter what. We make new training on the spot. The shuttle bay shook slightly as the Incheon hammer fired its main weapons at a Vrex dreadnought. Through the transparent aluminum windows, the Marines could see flashes of light as human and alien weapons exchanged fire. On the bridge of the Incheon hammer, Captain Jin-Soo Ryu watched the tactical display with satisfaction. His ship had been built specifically for this kind of warfare, fast, tough, and carrying enough firepower to threaten ships much larger than itself. Weapons. Target their engine section, Captain Ryu ordered. I want them dead in space, not destroyed. Aye, sir. Firing mass drivers. The Incheon hammer's main weapons sent streams of metal projectiles toward the Vrex ship. Unlike energy weapons, these solid rounds couldn't be deflected by shields or absorbed by armor. They simply punched through whatever was in their way. The Vrex dreadnought shuddered as the projectiles tore through its engine compartments. Internal explosions bloomed along its hull as secondary systems failed. Within minutes, the massive ship was drifting helplessly through space. Direct hit, Captain. Target is disabled. Good. Signal the Marines. Tell them their ride is ready. In the medical bay of the Soul's Pride, Dr. Na-Young Kim watched the battle through the ship's internal displays while she prepared for casualties. She had served in 3 previous conflicts, and she understood the terrible mathematics of warfare. But she also understood something that the aliens didn't. Human tactics weren't just about winning battles. They were about making sure the enemy never wanted to fight again. Doctor, her assistant called out, we're receiving wounded from the corvette squadrons. 12 casualties, all stable. Dr. Kim nodded, beginning her work. Human medicine had advanced considerably since the early days of space travel, but she knew that the real victory wasn't in the battles they won. It was in the people they brought home afterward. The first transport shuttle launched from the Incheon hammer, carrying Sergeant Bayek and her squad toward the disabled Vrex ship. The shuttle pilot, Lieutenant Min Jae Park, had trained for this kind of assault landing for 2 years. 30 seconds to contact, Lieutenant Park announced. Defensive systems on the target ship appear to be offline. Sergeant Bayek checked her weapons one final time. Unlike the energy weapons favored by most alien species, human Marines carried firearms that used chemical propellants to fire solid projectiles. They were simple, reliable, and worked in any environment. Remember the briefing, she told her squad. These aliens are stronger than humans, but they're not faster. Use that advantage. Stay mobile, work in pairs, and don't give them time to organize a response. The shuttle latched onto the hull of the Vrex ship with a loud clang. Cutting charges blew a hole through the alien metal, and the Marines poured through into the ship's corridors. The inside of the Vrex vessel was dark and alien. The corridors were too tall for humans, designed for beings who stood nearly 8 feet high. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, and the air had a sharp metallic smell. This is Alpha Squad, Sergeant Beck reported through her radio. We're inside the target, beginning sweep of Deck 7. The first Vrex soldiers they encountered were waiting in ambush at a corridor intersection. They were massive beings, nearly twice the size of humans, wearing armor that looked like it could stop a tank shell. But size and armor didn't help when the enemy refused to fight fair. Sergeant Bayek's squad used flashbang grenades to disorient the aliens, then attacked from multiple directions at once. Human tactics emphasized speed and confusion over brute force. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. The Vrex soldiers, trained for direct combat between equals, had no idea how to respond to opponents who hit them from 3 directions and then disappeared before they could return fire. Deck 7 secure, Sergeant Bayek reported. moving to Deck 8. Throughout the ship, other human squads carried out similar attacks. They moved through the alien vessel like ghosts, appearing long enough to strike and then vanishing into the maze of corridors before the defenders could respond. Major Woojin Park led the assault on the Vrex flagship, the largest and most heavily defended ship in the alien fleet. His target was the bridge, where Admiral Thexva commanded what remained of his forces. "Sir," one of his sergeants asked as they prepared to breach the bridge doors. "What if they refused to surrender?" Major Park looked at the heavy blast doors that separated them from the alien command center. Behind those doors were beings who had planned to conquer every human world in the galaxy. They had studied human colonies like a predator studies prey, looking for weaknesses to exploit. "Then we remind them why that was a bad idea," the Major replied. The charges detonated, blowing the blast doors inward. Major Park and his Marines rushed through the smoke and debris, their weapons ready. Admiral Thexva stood in the center of his bridge, surrounded by the wreckage of his command center. Half of his crew was dead or wounded, and the surviving officers looked at the human soldiers with expressions of shock and fear. "I am Admiral Thexva of the Vrex Empire," the alien commander said, his voice shaking. "I demand to be treated according to the laws of warfare." Major Park removed his helmet, revealing a face that was young but had seen too much combat. "Admiral, I am Major Park of the United Earth Marine Corps. You are now a prisoner of war." The alien admiral looked around his ruined bridge. "How is this possible? Our ships are superior, our weapons more advanced, our soldiers stronger." "Maybe," Major Park agreed. "But you made one mistake, Admiral. You thought that superior technology would be enough to beat us." The Major gestured toward his Marines who were securing the bridge with professional efficiency. "Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, Admiral. We've fought with sticks and stones, with swords and shields, with gunpowder and steel. Technology changes, but the principles of warfare don't." Admiral Thexva slumped in his command chair, finally understanding the scope of his defeat. "Your people, they fight differently than any species we've encountered." "Yes, we do," Major Park confirmed. "Most species develop their military doctrine and then stick with it for centuries. Humans adapt our tactics for every new enemy we face. You studied our colonies for 5 years, Admiral. We studied you studying us." Through the broken windows of the bridge, Admiral Thexva could see the rest of his fleet. Several ships were disabled and being boarded by human Marines. Others were trying to retreat but found themselves harassed by swarms of small human vessels. "This is not how civilized species conduct warfare," the Admiral said weakly. Major Park's expression hardened. "Civilized species don't attack colonies full of civilians, Admiral. You chose to fight us. We just chose to fight back in a way you weren't prepared for." The Major activated his radio. "Command, this is Boarding Team Alpha. We have secured the enemy flagship. Admiral Thexva is in custody." Commander Kang's voice came back immediately. "Understood, Major. Excellent work. Begin intelligence gathering operations." As the human Marines began downloading data from the Vrex computer systems, Admiral Thexva realized that this battle had been lost before it even began. The humans hadn't just defeated his fleet. They had been planning his defeat for years. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why go to all this trouble? Why not simply build a larger fleet and meet us in direct combat?" Major Park looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Because, Admiral, humans learned something important a long time ago. It's not enough to win one battle. You have to win in a way that prevents the next battle from happening." The alien commander thought about this for a moment. "You mean to make an example of us?" "No," Major Park replied. "We mean to make sure that every other species in the galaxy understands what happens when someone threatens human civilians." Commander Boram Kang stood on the bridge of the destroyer Soul's Pride as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Around her ship, hundreds of other human vessels appeared in flashes of blue light, their engines burning bright as they accelerated toward the trapped Vrex fleet. "All ships, this is Commander Kang," she broadcast on the fleet frequency. "Target assignments are being transmitted now. Remember, we want at least 3 of their ships intact for study. Everything else is fair game." On the tactical display, the human fleet spread out like water flowing around rocks. Unlike the tight, disciplined formations of the Vrex, the human ships moved in loose, flowing patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully coordinated. Captain Dong Hyun Jung commanded a squadron of 12 corvettes, each ship small enough to fit inside one of the Vrex dreadnoughts. His pilots were young and eager, recruited from the racing circuits of the inner colonies. "Remember, people," Jung told his squadron, "speed is life. Stay moving, hit them hard, and don't give them a chance to target you properly." The corvettes accelerated past the larger ships, their engines pushed to maximum power. They moved like dolphins in the ocean, diving and weaving through space in patterns that made the Vrex gunners dizzy trying to track them. On the Vrex flagship, Admiral Thexva watched the approaching human fleet with growing confusion. "Tactical, give me numbers." "Sir, I count 437 human vessels, but most of them are very small. Total mass is less than half of our fleet." The Admiral felt slightly better. Mass meant armor, weapons, shields. His 15 dreadnoughts should be able to handle this swarm of tiny ships. "All vessels open fire as soon as they come into range," he ordered. But as the human ships drew closer, strange things began to happen. Objects that had looked like asteroids and space debris suddenly lit up with engine signatures. Rocks that had been drifting quietly through the system revealed themselves to be camouflaged human ships. Lieutenant Sujin Han was one of the pilots hiding in the asteroid field. Her stealth fighter had been waiting here for 6 months, its hull disguised to look like a piece of space rock. When the signal came, she powered up her engines and joined the attack. "This is Ghost 7, she reported to the fleet commander. "Beginning sensor array strikes." Sujin's fighter was too small to carry heavy weapons, but it didn't need them. Her job was to blind the enemy, not destroy them. She launched a spread of micro-missiles at the sensor arrays on the nearest Vrex ship, each warhead designed to create maximum electronic interference. The Vrex ship's point defense systems tried to track the tiny missiles, but Sujin had timed her approach perfectly. She came in from the ship's blind spot, using their own bulk to hide her approach until it was too late. Explosions bloomed across the Vrex ship's hull as the missiles found their targets. Sensor arrays went dark, communication relays failed, and targeting systems flickered offline. "Direct hit," Sujin reported. "Target 1 is flying blind." Across the battlefield, dozens of other stealth fighters carried out similar attacks. The Vrex fleet found their advanced sensors being systematically destroyed by tiny ships they could barely. Detected Admiral Thexva watched his tactical displays flicker and fail as his ships lost their ability to see clearly. "What kind of tactics are these?" he demanded. "Sir," his science officer replied, "the humans aren't trying to destroy us outright. They're trying to control us. They're taking away our advantages one by one." The main human fleet was close enough now to begin serious combat. The Vrex opened fire with their massive energy weapons, beams of bright plasma that could melt through the hull of any normal ship. But the human ships didn't fight like normal ships. Instead of standing their ground and trading shots, they scattered like startled birds, each vessel moving on a different vector. Tae-young coordinated the human response from his position on the command cruiser. His job was to manage the drone swarms that accompanied every human ship. Unlike the Vrex, who relied on powerful individual vessels, humans had embraced the concept of distributed warfare. "All drone controllers, execute pattern Delta 7, Tae-young ordered. Thousands of small robotic fighters detached from the human ships, each one no bigger than a car but packed with sensors and weapons. They moved in coordinated groups like schools of mechanical fish swimming through space. The drones were controlled by artificial intelligence systems that could react faster than any living pilot. When the Vrex weapons fired, the drones shifted their formations in microseconds, flowing around the energy beams like water around stones. "Impossible," Admiral Thexva shouted. "No fleet can coordinate that many individual units." But the humans had learned their military doctrine from centuries of warfare on Earth. They understood that many small coordinated attacks were often more effective than a few large ones. Every drone was expendable, but together they were devastating. The first real shock came when Captain Dong Hyun-jung's corvette squadron reached attack range. His 12 ships moved in perfect synchronization, each one targeting a different part of the same Vrex dreadnought. "All ships, commence attack run," Jung ordered. The corvettes opened fire with weapons that seemed almost primitive compared to Vrex technology. Instead of exotic energy beams, they used simple kinetic projectiles. Chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. The Vrex shields flared as they absorbed the impacts, but Jung had anticipated this. "Second wave fire now," Each corvette launched a spread of missiles, but these weren't normal warheads. They were packed with metallic dust that spread out in clouds around the wreck ship. When the clouds touched the energy shields, they created interference patterns that weakened the protective barriers. "Third wave," Jung called out. Now the corvettes fired their main weapons, mass drivers that hurled solid projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The weakened shields couldn't stop them all, and the Vrex dreadnought shuddered as impacts rang along its hull. Admiral Thexva realized with growing horror that the humans weren't just throwing ships at his fleet randomly. Every attack was carefully planned, each wave designed to set up the next one. The humans fought like they had been studying Vrex technology for years, which he was beginning to understand they had. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're losing shield integrity on ships 3, 7, and 12. The human weapons seem specifically designed to counter our defensive systems." On the Soul's Pride, Commander Bo-Ram Kang watched the battle develop with satisfaction. The human fleet was performing exactly as planned. They had lost some ships already. War was never without cost, but they were achieving their objectives. "All heavy units. Begin Phase 2, she ordered. The larger human ships, which had been holding back until now, moved into attack position. Unlike the swarming fighters and corvettes, these vessels carried weapons powerful enough to threaten the Vrex dreadnoughts directly. But even these ships fought differently than the Vrex expected. Instead of engaging in direct combat, they used hit-and-run tactics, striking quickly and then retreating before the aliens could respond effectively. Admiral Thexva found himself fighting an enemy that refused to behave according to any military doctrine he understood. The humans didn't try to hold territory or maintain formations. They flowed around his fleet like a tide, striking wherever his defenses were weakest. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet commander." "Put it through," Thexva ordered, hoping to negotiate some kind of surrender. Commander Kang's face appeared on the screen. She was a middle-aged woman with short gray hair and calm, intelligent eyes. When she spoke, her voice was professional but not unfriendly. "Admiral Thexva, I am Commander Kang of the United Earth Defense Force. I want you to understand that what you're experiencing right now is not anger or hatred. This is simply how humans fight when we have time to prepare." The Admiral looked around his bridge, taking in the damage reports and system failures. His mighty fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. "How?" he asked simply. Commander Kang smiled, and there was something sad in her expression. "Admiral, your people have been watching us for 5 years, but we've been watching you for longer than that. Every time your scouts came to study our colonies, we learned a little more about your technology. Every attack pattern you used, every weapon frequency you employed, every tactical formation you favored, we recorded it all." She gestured to something off-screen. "The ships you're fighting were specifically designed and equipped to counter Vrex technology. Our weapons are tuned to frequencies that disrupt your shields. Our armor is optimized to deflect your energy beams. Our tactics are based on extensive computer simulations of exactly this kind of battle." Admiral Thexva felt the last of his hope drain away. "You've been planning this from the beginning." "From the moment we knew your empire existed," Commander Kang confirmed. "Humans learned long ago that the best way to win a war is to make sure your enemy can never fight it effectively. You wanted to conquer us, Admiral. Instead, you taught us how to defeat you." Admiral Thexva watched his scanner readings with growing alarm. His science officer, a thin Vrex named Kexelon, spoke in rapid, worried tones. "Admiral, the deep scans are showing impossible readings. This human ship, it's not what we thought." "Explain," Thexva demanded, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. "The hull composition includes materials we've never encountered. The internal structure shows massive empty spaces where weapons should be. Instead, there are arrays of equipment we can't identify." "And the energy signature?" Kexelon paused, checking his readings again. "Sir, the energy isn't coming from weapons or engines. It's coming from some kind of communication system." On the bridge of the Dauntless, Dr. Min-Ho Yoon sat calmly at his science station. Next to him, his assistant Haewon Shin monitored the data flowing from their hidden sensors. "Doctor," Haewon said quietly, "we're getting complete tactical information on all 15 alien ships. Hull composition, weapon systems, crew numbers, even their command structure." Min-Ho nodded, making notes on his tablet. "Excellent. How long until the quantum burst transmission is complete? 3 more minutes, sir. Every human fleet commander in the galaxy will have this data within the hour. Minho smiled. For 3 years he had worked on this project. The idea had been simple but brilliant. Instead of trying to fight unknown alien threats with superior firepower, humanity would use its greatest strength: information. The Dauntless, and ships like it, were not weapons of war. They were the most advanced intelligence-gathering systems ever built. Every sensor, every scanner, every piece of recording equipment that human science could create had been packed into these modified vessels. Hay-1. Begin Phase 2 of the protocol. Yes, sir. Hay-1's fingers moved over her controls, activating new systems throughout the ship. On the alien flagship, more alarms began to sound. Kexlan's voice rose in panic. Admiral, the human ship is now broadcasting on quantum frequencies. They're sending massive amounts of data across the galaxy. We can't stop it. Admiral Thexva felt cold fear settle in his chest. The Vrex Empire had built its expansion on careful planning and superior technology. They studied their enemies for years before attacking, learning their weaknesses and exploiting them. But this was something they had never encountered. How is this possible? He demanded. Humans are a primitive species. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Captain Hyunwoo's voice came through the communication channel, calm and confident. That's what we wanted you to think, Admiral. You see, we've been watching you watch us for quite some time. The human captain appeared on screen again, standing relaxed on his bridge. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, showing no signs of stress or panic despite being surrounded by a superior alien force. For the past 5 years, Hyunwoo continued, every time your scouts visited a human system, we knew about it. Every time you cataloged our defenses, we were cataloging yours. Every colony you marked as weak and defenseless was actually a fully operational sensor station, recording everything your ships did. Minho stood up from his station and walked into view of the communication screen. He was a small elderly man with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked more like a university professor than a military officer. Admiral Thexva, Minho said politely. I am Dr. Yoon. I designed the systems you're looking at. I want you to understand what just happened to your fleet. What do you mean? The Admiral asked, though his voice was barely a whisper. Your ships just performed the most detailed scan possible on a human intelligence vessel. In return, we performed an equally detailed scan on your ships. The difference is our scans work faster, and we're very good at sharing information. Dr. Yoon gestured to his tablet where streams of data flowed across the screen. Right now, every detail about your fleet is being transmitted to every human military commander in the galaxy. Your weapon frequencies, your shield harmonics, your engine signatures, your crew numbers, your supply needs, your tactical formations, everything. Admiral Thexva felt his legs go weak. That's impossible. No species shares military intelligence so freely. Most species don't, Hyunwoo agreed. But humans learned something important during our early wars. Information is only valuable if it reaches the people who need it. We don't hoard intelligence like treasure. We spread it like seeds. Haewon looked up from her station. Doctor, we're also receiving incoming data from the other monitoring stations. The Vrex have 17 fleets currently in human space, all following the same attack patterns. Excellent, Minho said. Make sure that information is included in the transmission. Admiral Thexva's science officer spoke up again, his voice cracking with stress. Sir, we're detecting quantum entanglement signatures throughout this system. There are monitoring devices everywhere, on asteroids, space debris, even floating in open space. This entire system is a sensor network. The Admiral closed his eyes, finally understanding the full scope of the trap they had fallen into. How long have you been preparing this? 3 years of active preparation, Minho replied. But really, we've been preparing for something like this for much longer. You see, Admiral, you made the same mistake that many species make when they study humans. You looked at our technology and assumed it represented our capabilities. Captain Hyunwoo stepped forward again. Humans have always been good at making do with what we have. When we spread across the galaxy, we didn't do it because we were weak and disorganized. We did it because scattered settlements are much harder to destroy than concentrated ones. Every human colony you've identified as a target, Dr. Yoon added, has been preparing for your attack since the day we knew you existed. The farmers and merchants and scientists you plan to conquer? They're all citizens of Earth, and every citizen of Earth knows how to fight. Admiral Thexva tried to think, tried to find some way out of this disaster. You can't defeat the entire Vrex Empire with intelligence gathering. We have ships, weapons, armies. You're absolutely right, Hyunwoo said with that same cold smile. Intelligence gathering alone isn't enough to win a war, but it's enough to make sure we don't lose one. The captain turned to his communications officer. Eunji, how long until the fleet arrives? Estimated arrival in 12 minutes, Captain. Admiral Nam confirms that all ships are in position. Admiral Thexva's blood went even colder. Fleet? What fleet? The fleet that's been waiting for you to show up, Hyunwoo replied. You see, Admiral, the Dauntless wasn't just bait for your ships. It was bait for your entire invasion plan. We knew that once you found what you thought was a helpless human vessel, you'd commit significant forces to capture it. That concentration of your ships in one location makes things much easier for us. On his scanner displays, Admiral Thexva began to see new contacts appearing at the edge of the system. Ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel, moving toward his trapped fleet. Impossible, he whispered. Our intelligence said there were no major human fleets in this sector. Dr. Yoon laughed quietly. Admiral, your intelligence was based on what we wanted you to see. Did you really think a species that survived centuries of warfare on their own planet would be careless about military security? The approaching human ships began to resolve on the Vrex sensors. Admiral Thexva stared at the readings in disbelief. There weren't dozens of ships coming toward them. There were hundreds, maybe thousands. Admiral, his tactical officer called out, I'm reading at least 300 human vessels approaching from multiple vectors. But sir, many of them are very small. Fighters, corvettes, destroyers. Nothing bigger than a heavy cruiser. Admiral Thexva felt a moment of hope. His 15 ships were all massive dreadnoughts, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a planet. Surely they could handle a swarm of small human vessels. Then Captain Hyunwoo spoke again, and the hope died. Admiral, I want you to understand something important about human military doctrine. Other species build a few very powerful ships and try to protect them. Humans build many smaller ships and expect to lose them. The difference is, we can replace our losses much faster than you can. The human captain gestured toward the approaching fleet. Every one of those ships has a crew that volunteered for this mission. They know the odds. They know some of them won't be going home. And they came anyway, because that's what humans do when our families are threatened. Admiral Thexva looked at his trapped, outnumbered fleet and realized that everything the Vrex Empire thought they knew about humanity was wrong. These weren't primitive savages who could be easily conquered. They were something much more dangerous. They were prepared. Captain Hyunwoo Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, his dark eyes fixed on the view screen. The stars looked peaceful out there, but he knew that would change soon. His ship drifted quietly through space near the edge of the Kepler system, waiting. Captain, said So-Min Park from her position at the tactical station, I'm picking up movement on the long-range sensors. 15 ships approaching fast from the outer system. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. Right on time. Are they what we expected? Yes, sir. The energy signatures match the alien ships that attacked the colony on New Sol 3 months ago. They're big, Captain. Much bigger than us. The bridge crew remained calm despite the news. Jae-ho Lee worked quietly at his engineering station, making small adjustments to the ship's systems. Hyunji Choi sat at communications, her fingers dancing over the controls as she prepared the equipment they would need soon. Hyunji, are we broadcasting the right signals? Hyunwoo asked. Yes, Captain. We're showing minimal power, basic life support, and some engine damage. To their sensors, we look like a small human frigate that got lost and broke down. Hyunwoo smiled at that. The Dauntless was indeed a frigate once, but that was before the scientists got their hands on it. Now it was something very different, though the aliens wouldn't know that until it was too late. The alien ships came closer, and soon they could see them clearly on the screen. They were massive vessels, each one 5 times bigger than the Dauntless. Their hulls were dark metal with strange blue lights running along their sides. They moved in perfect formation like predators surrounding wounded prey. They're beautiful ships, Jae-ho said quietly. Shame we're going to have to destroy them. Contact from the alien fleet, Yunji reported. They're broadcasting on standard human frequencies, but the translation is rough. They're demanding our surrender. Hyunwoo walked to the center of the bridge. He had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Everything had led to this point. All the planning, all the preparation, all the waiting. "Put me through to them," he said. The view screen changed to show the face of an alien. It had gray skin, large black eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was harsh and mechanical through the translator. "Human vessel, you are surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Hyunwoo stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. "I am Captain Kim of the United Earthship Dauntless. May I ask who I have the honor of speaking with?" The alien's eyes narrowed. "I am Admiral Thexva of the Vrex Empire. You will surrender now, or we will take your ship by force." "The Vrex Empire," Hyunwoo repeated. "Yes, we've heard of you. You've been busy in this sector, haven't you? Attacking our colonies, studying our defenses." Admiral Thexva's expression didn't change. "Your species is weak. Your ships are primitive. You spread across the galaxy like insects, but you have no real strength. Soon all human worlds will belong to the Vrex." Behind Hyunwoo, Somin worked at her station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she activated the ship's hidden scanning systems. The Dauntless began to record everything about the alien ships. Their weapons, their shields, their crew numbers, their weaknesses. "You seem very confident," Hyunwoo said to the alien admiral. "Tell me, have you scanned my ship yet?" "Of course. Your vessel is a simple frigate with basic weapons and minimal armor. You pose no threat to us." Hyunwoo smiled again, and this time there was something cold in his expression. "I think you should scan us again. More carefully this time." Admiral Thexva looked confused, but he gave orders to his crew. The alien ships began a deeper scan of the Dauntless, their sensors probing every part of the human vessel. On the bridge of the lead alien ship, crew members began to look worried. One of them spoke quickly to the admiral in their own language. Then another did the same. Soon the entire bridge was filled with concerned voices. Admiral Thexva's face went pale as he looked at the scanner readings. The human ship wasn't what it appeared to be. The hull was made of materials the Vrex had never seen before. The energy readings were all wrong, and most disturbing of all, the ship appeared to be mostly empty inside. "What is this?" the admiral demanded. "What kind of ship are you?" "The right kind," Hyunwoo replied. "The kind that's been waiting for you to show up. You see, Admiral, we've been trying to make contact with your people for quite some time, but you seem to prefer attacking our colonies to talking, so we decided to try a different approach." On her station, Yoonji's equipment came to life. Banks of quantum communicators hidden throughout the ship began broadcasting at faster-than-light speeds. Every detail about the Vrex fleet, their positions, their weapons, their numbers, was being sent across the galaxy in real time. "What are you doing?" Admiral Thexva shouted. "Exactly what this ship was built for," Hyunwoo said calmly. "The Dauntless isn't a warship, Admiral. It's bait. For 3 years we've been placing ships like this one at strategic points throughout the galaxy, waiting for an aggressive species to reveal themselves." The Admiral's eyes went wide as he understood what was happening. You were waiting for us? Not just you specifically. Any species that thought humans were easy prey. You've been studying our colonies, cataloging our defenses, planning your invasion. But you made one mistake. You assumed that just because we spread out across many worlds, we were weak and divided. Jae-ho looked up from his engineering station. "Captain, the gravitational anchor is ready." "Thank you, Jae-ho." Hyunwoo turned back to the view screen. "Admiral Thexva, I want you to understand something very important. Every human colony you've cataloged, every defenseless world you've marked for conquest, every scattered settlement you think you can easily take, they've all been watching you too." Admiral Thexva tried to give orders to his fleet, but his voice was shaking now. "All ships retreat immediately. Leave this system now." But it was too late. Jae-ho activated the gravitational anchor, and space itself began to bend around the alien fleet. The massive ships found themselves trapped in a bubble of twisted space-time, unable to move faster than light. "I'm afraid you can't leave just yet," Hyunwoo said. "You wanted to scan a human warship, Admiral. Well, you're about to meet one." The space around the trapped Vrex fleet began to shimmer and change. What had seemed like empty space was suddenly full of movement. Ships began to appear out of nowhere, dropping their stealth fields and revealing themselves. Admiral Thexva stared in horror as he realized that what he had thought was a simple ambush was actually something much worse. The humans hadn't just sent one ship to wait for them. They had turned the entire system into a trap. "Signal the fleet," Hyunwoo said to Yoonji, his voice calm and steady. "Tell them the bait worked.